Call Jamie Kyle, 423-381-3429.
Joined by our state legislative delegation, Senator Adam Lowe, Representatives Dan Howell, Kevin Raper. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Good morning.
Great.
Good to be with you.
Gentlemen.
Great, yeah, great to see all of you. I want to begin. I know you guys are continuing a wonderful tradition of sponsoring our Walk for Life coverage, but I want to begin though with more of a contemporary issue this morning. We've just had, of course, our sheriff, our county schools director, Dr. Cash, and security director Zach Pike in here about all of these school threats we're seeing. And I want to begin with Senator Lowe. We're seeing a rash of these really since the beginning of the year. Any I want to get your thoughts on this, Senator.
Well, as a parent, that's how I kind of react first. You know, I have children who are in our school systems. I have a wife who works in those systems. It's hard for me not to take the parent perspective to Nashville when we take up legislation and we talk about these things. And we've received both praise and criticism on how we've handled and funded security for our students. But the constant has been student safety in mind. And we've taken up programs that have increased fortification in our schools, increased training, response time. Sheriff Lawson mentioned funding the SRO program, and that's added SROs in our school. We've spent more money in Tennessee towards school safety than at any point in Tennessee history. And we've done it because it's just a necessary condition of society. Our students are 3 times more anxious, depressed, and suicidal than any generation before. And so at the state level, we're starting to have conversations about not just school safety, but what is happening in the mental health of our students that's prompting this epidemic of violent behavior and lashing out and communicating out. And so I think you'll see not only continued effort on our part to fund the safety aspect, but starting to really address the root of the problem, which is how do we get more counselors into our schools who are spending face time with students to recognize when there's distress, when there are issues. How do we get in front of the problem? We look to what recently happened in Georgia, and that student hadn't been to school for several weeks. And it's amazing that, to me, we start to look at the human failure aspect of what took place in Georgia. At some point, we have to address that too. We can put all the locks on the doors, we can arm all the SROs, we can put all the gates and fences up, but there's some value in having the right professionals in the right space, and there's value in us as parents starting to look at the mental health of our children. Well, Dr. Cash did a great job saying, monitor your child's social media. I'm going to go one step further. Do not let your child on social media. Do not let them have social media. I haven't regretted that decision with my children. I think we're going to see that having these devices in our classroom are a distraction. We're going to have to address the root causes of what's causing the distress in our students.
Representative Howell? Same question.
Well, basically the same answer. I think we totally agree on that. And I was just thinking back over the 2023 session, the 113th General Assembly, the first part of that session. I think I co-sponsored one of the most comprehensive school safety bills that we've ever passed in the history of Tennessee. We've hardened our schools, and when I say hardened our schools, that's not to keep the kids in, that's to keep the bad people out. And the kids inside that, if you can call it a fortification, have all the freedom they've always had, but they're safer. We passed funding to put an SRO in every school who can't afford them themselves. We're fortunate in Bradley and Cleveland. In fact, all of the schools in my district, Polk and Meigs County as well, that they all have SROs. They do a fine job. But it's a complicated problem, and we can pass all the bills we want to, but until we deal with the root cause, which, as we saw in Georgia, it was a family problem. And the FBI had been warned last year about this same young man. And as the information begins to come out now, we've learned that there was a school call to the school about 30 minutes prior to the shooting, warning somebody there in administration that this is a problem. You need to look at this. And 30 minutes later, we had 4 students that were dead. So it's a comprehensive problem. We've tried to address that legislatively, but how do you criminalize someone who, for example, a counselor who may know something, and how do you prove that they knew it? and how do you punish them if they don't report something? I mean, it really is complicated, and it's difficult to pass legislation when people's hearts are just not right.
Representative Kevin Raper, same thought here.
I reiterate these same thoughts, both of them. But one thing, I'm a former classroom teacher, and they have a big responsibility in the fact of they spend more time than any others with the teachers and student relationship, and they can recognize things early. One of the negatives that I keep hearing is this: why don't we put metal detectors in all the schools? Well, yeah, that's a great idea, and I love it. But I see a couple of issues with that. One is the massive amounts of money that it would take to do that. You have to arm those also, so you can't just let them pass through. You have to have armed guard. And the next thing is you have to have school. And if they're lined up in the cold or whatever and lined up out the door, it's very difficult in these bigger schools to get students in. So I agree, we have put a large amount of money. We will continue to do so, and I think that in a mental health aspect you're going to see lots more money.
The original reason we've invited our state legislative delegation in this morning is they have continued a tradition that goes back nearly 20 years. The state legislative delegation has sponsored our coverage of the New Hope Pregnancy Care Center Walk for Life. And Representative Howell, I want to begin with you. I know this is very important. You've been involved in the Walk for Life almost since the beginning.
I remember Kay Horner.
Yes.
Going back
and Perry remembers Kay, I think.
Perry, I saw Perry the other day.
Well,
he does remember
her.
Yeah. But Kay was the first executive director, I believe, back in the 80s when it was founded, and we look at them now. I remember they struggled to get off the ground. They moved offices several times looking for a nice fit. Here, however many decades later, they have their own place. They have their own ultrasound room. They have their own nurses. God has really blessed this organization, addressing one of the most important aspects in our society today and one of the most debatable things in our society, and that is the sanctity of life. And I had an opportunity to tour the facility back in June when they paid off their mortgage, which was a great benefit to their budget. And Beth Henderson has done such a wonderful job building on what Tracy Shellhouse had done there and so many of the other directors before them. And it's just a privilege and an honor for me to say that I do support New Hope, and I appreciate so much what they do.
Representative Raper, your thoughts on this?
First of all, I'm all about human rights, and I think that we all are, spiritually speaking, we are bound for service. This is all about service. You're serving the people of your community, making sure that human rights are not violated. And Kevin Raper's point of view is that starts from the unborn, that starts from that it continues on to right after they're born, such as food and shelter and so on. It continues all the way up through high school, whether it may be a bullying situation, whether it be a mental health situation. It continues through middle ages. And we've got a number of issues, people with drug abuse situations to alcoholism to different things. And then one of the areas that we are lacking so much in is taking care of our elderly. And we are very neglectful, and we need to look at doing so, whether they are just at home by themselves or whether they are in a nursing home. We have an obligation to make sure. And one last one I'll mention to you are our veterans. So I think it covers a wide range of people that we need to protect and serve and value the sanctity of human life.
Senator Lowe.
Well, Steve, the issue of abortion is never going to be a political issue for me, even though people want to have that discussion in a political context, and it's very popular. right now nationally to have that. But for me, it's a very personal one because I was the fetus. I was born to a teenage mother who was compelled to abort me. And the reason my mother was able to choose life, and she would tell you she didn't have a choice, she respected my existence. That's what my mother would tell you, was because she had a support network. And she had those who were there to help her through the process. And that is exactly what New Hope does. New Hope provides all of the support that confused and I want to say distressed mothers might need during that moment, and they provide that valuable service because not everybody had the father that I had. Not everybody had the grandparents that I had. But again, this is an issue. I think Representative Raper kind of hit the nail on the head. It's a human rights issue of our age. And there's a lot of discussion around where we draw the line, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 16 weeks. And what I want to say is I, as a person, as a legislator, do not possess the authority to draw arbitrary lines around what is and isn't life. My job is to recognize its existence. And for me, that means a very personal story of about how I came into this world, and which means I do believe that I existed at conception. And I believe that my mother did the right thing in recognizing my human right to exist and be born into this world. So it is not a political issue for me. It never will be. It'll be a very personal issue about a very unprotected demographic that requires a voice that they can't generate for themselves. And New Hope has been a champion in regards to that. And we have other organizations similarly that do that. And I think in the halls of Nashville, you'll continue to hear that out of your legislative delegation.
Bridget, let's get the information out. New Hope Pregnancy Care Center, Walk for Life. Bridget's on the board of the New Hope Pregnancy Care Center because so many people said no.
I love New Hope.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's happening next Saturday, September 21st at North Cleveland Church of God, as always. So registration begins at 8 o'clock. The walk begins at 9. Lots of people are already fundraising ahead of time, which is always a great help. But you don't have to do that. You can show up the day of and still show your support. So it's next Saturday, registration 8 a.m., and the walk begins at 9 o'clock, all at North Cleveland Church of God.
And you'll be there broadcasting live, courtesy of our local legislative delegation.
That's right. Yeah, our broadcast will begin at 7:45 next Saturday. We'll be there till 9 o'clock.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
And very important morning here. A lot going on. We'll be back in a moment.
Dr. Wright and Dr. John both got their start in pediatric.
Our legal system is complex, and your case may impact several areas.